Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. Tider Insider TV, brought to you by Visit Tuscaloosa.
And good evening, everybody, and welcome in to Tider Insider Television, as you just heard, presented by Visit Tuscaloosa. Go to visittuscaloosa.com. Alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com, I'm WVUA 23 Sports Director Gary Harris. Well, we're going to get to football, but this is a first segment that's going to feature the baseball and then the little bigger softball. We'll start with Crimson Tide Baseball, which completed its last home series in the SEC against Georgia. Rodney, they really needed this series, and they got it. And how they did it was very impressive to me. Dodging the rain all weekend. We know rain just will not get out of here. On Friday, they scheduled a doubleheader to try to get two in because they knew it wouldn't play on Saturday. They lost the first game 19-3. 19-3, Rod. They didn't just lose. I mean, they got run out of the Joe. But then to bounce back in game two, take a 6-2 lead with Riley Quick in complete control, but because that game got postponed due to rain, he didn't get to come back out, obviously, so he was done. So you don't play Saturday. You come back out Sunday morning at 10. You worry about Georgia, those big bats, they lead the nation in home runs, touching you up and getting back into that game, too, without Quick being available. They didn't do it. Alabama beat them good, 9-3. And then in that 7-inning game 3, the Tide won a close one, Rodney, 5-4. So what that does is this series victory, which was huge for Alabama. Kate Snell, by the way, had a gigantic series for Alabama. Kate Snell is playing great. LeBron's found his bat. But what it does, Rod, is it gives Alabama a record of 15-12 heading into the final SEC series at Florida. Now, Florida, after starting 1-11, has won like 12 of their last 13 or something. They're red hot. They won a series at Texas, even though they've got some injuries. But you and I have said all along, 17 is kind of a magic number. You get to 17 wins in the SEC, you're going to host. So if Alabama can win that series, that would be 17 wins. I think even if they just, as long as they don't get swept, Rod, if they can get one win at Florida, that would put them at 16-14. I think they'll be heavily in the conversation. They're going to be in a regional, but it'd sure be nice to be at home.
It would be real nice. I mean, and going back to that Georgia series for a moment there, Gary, like you said, the 19-3 in game one looked like a bad omen for the weekend. And the way Alabama, showed some grit, rallied, and took the next two games was really big. I know that the people on TiderInsider.com, the mood really changed after that first game.
Yeah, I mean, again, winning 2 out of 3 was the goal. Yeah, you'd always like to sweep. But when you come out in that first game, I mean, that's disheartening. They hit 7 home runs against you, 6 or 7 home runs. I lost count, to be honest with you. I think it was 7. It might have been 6. And, they won that first game. And then, like I said, Quick in the second game looks great. But because that game got stopped in the 5th inning, you can't come back with him on Sunday. So you've got to go into your bullpen to battle back, to go ahead and not only just win that game, too, but to win it going away 9-3. And then in that third game, which you knew was going to come right down to the wire, to have Oz come in after he's the best reliever in the country, best closer. But he had blown that save, at Vanderbilt the week before. For him to come in and shut the door, not once but twice, against Georgia was big for them, too. Yeah,
it really was. I mean, again, you're talking about a team that kind of a little bit had its back to the wall after that first game and really bounced back, showed some grit, the way they kind of earned these games. It's really impressive. Now, moving forward to Florida, like you said, I mean, one of the hottest teams in the SEC right now. If Alabama can win 2 games, then it's probably a shoe-in.
I think if they get to 16 wins, Rodney, when you look at their schedule that they've played, I would like to think that would be enough. But you know how it is. Somebody in this, the SEC, because most of the teams are going to get in, a lot of them are going to host. Somebody won't. So if you don't win that series, you put it in the committee's hands. But if you win 2 or 3 down there, you're going to host a regional, and that would be awesome for Alabama baseball. Well, speaking of hosting regionals, Alabama softball doesn't really know what that's not like. For the 20th consecutive year, Alabama is hosting a regional. It's their 26th consecutive year to be in a regional and the 20th straight year to host. Alabama with 21 losses. There was a little bit of concern, and there was some gnashing of teeth on the internet after Alabama got in. The haters were out there. But, again, the RPI is high. The schedule strength was unbelievable. They took 2 out of 3 against Oklahoma, which was a huge series win. They won a game at Florida, Rodney, and so they earned it based on the numbers. They'll be the number 15 overall seed. Of course, they'll be the top seed in the Tuscaloosa Regional. Virginia Tech, the 2 seed, is good. Those 2 teams played 2 games here in Tuscaloosa early this year and split them. They're going to be hard to handle. Belmont is their first time in as the 3 seed, and Alabama will open the regional against Jackson State out of the SWAC as the 4 seed. So, again, a lot of questions about this Alabama team, but not totally dissimilar from last year when they got a regional at home, and a lot of people didn't expect much. They won the regional, then they went to Tennessee and won the Super over the Lady Vols. So if they win this regional, Rodney, more than likely, because I don't see anybody beating Oklahoma, they'll have to go to Norman to play Oklahoma.
Yeah, that was kind of what I was going to. You mentioned the Oklahoma series again. I think that could prove to be obviously a great experience for Alabama as you move forward, hopefully to the Super Regional or whatever. And, Gary, look, what a record that Patrick Murphy has. I know he's got a lot of critics, kind of the way the program has, as they say, slipped a little bit over the last couple of years. And even though they're in the NCAA Softball World Series, I mean, just the record, the competitiveness in the SEC, and then you add Oklahoma, you add Texas. These are two elite programs, and the SEC as a whole. So really, it's a good season.
And Murphy always says it's about what's in front of you. And again, last year, very similar situation. They made it to the Women's College World Series and won a game once they got out there. So don't count this Alabama team out. All right, now it's time for Coach Talk. And speaking of Coach Murphy, he believes the Tide played a tough schedule this season, one that got them ready for this regional. They played 30 games against top 25 teams, and he says the way Alabama handled that schedule was admirable, and that's why they're getting to host a regional.
We just went over our schedule just a minute ago with the team, and we played 58 games, I believe, and 35 were against the field that's in the NCAA tournament. So over half of our games, way over half, were against teams that are going to be in the tournament this coming weekend. So the grittiness that they showed, the competitiveness, the resiliency is unbelievable.
All right, the Tuscaloosa Regional will be a Friday, Saturday, Sunday regional. As I mentioned, Alabama will open up against Jackson State Friday night at 6 p.m. on ESPN+. The first game of the day will have Belmont taking on Virginia Tech at 3:30 on ESPN+. And then, of course, it goes winners versus winners. Losers versus losers, then a loser versus a winner. The key is winning those first two games. If you win those first two games, you get to Sunday, and you have to lose twice. So that's the key for Alabama or any of these teams if they want to try to win. Not that you can't come back, but it's very difficult if you have to come out of the losers bracket. So, Rodney, again, Virginia Tech here is the bigger challenge of the other teams, not to disrespect either Belmont or Jackson State, but this is probably going to come down to Alabama and Virginia Tech. And I'm telling you, Virginia Tech's going to have them out on. They thought they should be hosting a regional, and they didn't get one despite having a great year. So it's not going to be easy for Alabama to get out of its own regional and get to Norman, but I got to make them the favorite at home.
Well, you remember last year when the doubters were out, and Murphy gave that pep talk. Sounded like he was giving a little bit more of a pep talk right there, talking about their schedule. And he's right. I mean, what an impressive schedule.
Yeah, not only does Alabama host 20 straight years, I think they've only lost one time in a regional out of those 20. I mean, they not only get here, but they win when they get here. Well, still to come on Tider Insider Television, we will dive into an update on Alabama men's golf regional, and the Crimson Tide wide receiver corps is getting a lot of compliments, even though outside of Ron Williams and Jeremy Bernard, most of these guys are unproven, at least at Alabama. Isaiah Horton's coming in with a good track record from Miami, but they could be a really good group. We'll talk about it. And we'll get to your phone calls, emails, and tweets in just a little bit. The phone number is always 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Or you can email us, titv@wvoa23.com. We'll be right back with the show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, Tider Insider TV. We'll return after this. And welcome back to Tider Insider TV, presented by Visit Tuscaloosa. Alongside Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris, and we continue our football updates. 2 months until SEC Media Days and 10 weeks until Alabama returns to practice, and of course just a couple of weeks away from the SEC spring meetings down in Destin. And we're going to take a look today at a position group that might be one of the better position groups in the country at this particular position, and could be a really improved group even from a year ago. We're going to talk about the wide receivers, Rodney. You've got a piece out on TiderInsider.com. Now, everybody knows the names Ron Williams and Jeremy Bernard. Obviously, returning, they had put up really good numbers last year. Isaiah Horton comes in from Miami, where he posted really good numbers. But after that, Cole Adams, until he got hurt, was playing really well. But there's some unknowns. Lotzeir Brooks, Derek Meadows, Jaylen Mbakwe making the switch from defense, Rico Scott, Jalen Hill coming off injury, Bubba Hampton. But the good news is That's 10 receivers, and all of them are very talented.
Yeah, I think Isaiah Horton is really going to make a huge difference when you add him to Jeremy Bernard and Ryan Williams. Both, had great years last year in terms of numbers. Ryan caught 48 balls, Jeremy caught 50. And you look at Horton, he's really big. There he is, number one. He's 6'4", he's 210 pounds. Caught 56 balls last year at Miami for over 600 yards, 5 touchdowns. He's a guy that makes a lot of plays. Here you see him in the A-Day event that they had, making a great play on a ball that was a little underthrown from Jeremy Bernard. But, he's a guy that all spring long was making plays at wide receiver court. And then you move on. And, of course, obviously Cole Adams has a little bit of experience. He's a really solid player. He's highly competitive, got a little speed to him, return kicks, as you know, Gary. But there's a couple of young players I want to kind of focus on. Lotzeir Brooks out of New Jersey, a true freshman guy. It's really, really dynamic. He's not very big. Kind of reminds some people a little bit of Jalen Waddle / Devontae Smith. But he is very, very explosive. Scored 67 touchdowns in high school.
Wow.
Set the New Jersey state record. And then also Derek Meadows. He's 6'6". He's 210 pounds. He is from Las Vegas, Nevada. Guy's originally committed to LSU. Alabama did a fantastic job of flipping him. There you see him. And I think he came in, Gary, a lot of people thought, okay, here's a guy that really wasn't tremendously productive because he didn't have a lot of targets to him in high school. Maybe he's going to need a little bit of polishing, which he does. But I think he's much more polished than what people really thought coming in as a receiver. So I think these two freshmen can contribute to this group. It's going to be interesting. Of course, you mentioned some of the other players, Rico Scott, Mbakwe switching over from defense. Of course, Jalen Hill still coming back from that knee injury. Gary, sometimes those knee injuries, they take a couple of years to really get you back to full force.
Yeah, Mbakwe could be a wild card. But I want to ask you a little bit more about Cole Adams because showed some toughness last year, or really, behind some really flashy playmakers. A guy like Cole Adams can always kind of be a glue guy. If it's a 3rd and 6, he's the kind of guy. Hey, if you need to run a 6-yard out, he could do it for you. I think he could be a guy that surprises people this year.
I think he's a Slade Bolden, but faster, maybe a little more athletic. Can maybe make plays. A little bit more of a playmaker. I really like Cole Adams. He's got some elusiveness to him. You saw him the way he handled the punts last year before his injury. The thing is, Cole was injured late in his high school career, missed his senior year. These injuries have kind of mounted up on him. So he's going to have to stay healthy to have an opportunity to make a great contribution.
And with Mbakwe, as we said, making that switch from defense to offense, although they played both in high school, he was a dynamic high school player. I covered him. His team beat Ryan Williams and Saraland for a state championship. He is a guy, though, that wants to be on offense. And do you think that he'll make a big impact for this team?
Well, again, you look at the wide receiver core, and I don't know exactly how many will get into the rotation, but he's certainly there on the edge, I think, of getting into it. In terms of, you look at him, he made a really nice catch. I think he was ruled out of bounds in the Michigan game, Gary, but he had just been switched over to offense, wearing number 3 this year versus 9 last year. But he's a guy, like you said, he's got all those playmaking tools. It's a matter of polishing up and gaining some consistency.
All right, that's a look at the wide receivers. Still to come on TITV, Alabama men's golf team is at their regional day 2. They had to deal with weather out in Reno, Nevada yesterday. Only got to play 7 holes in terrible conditions. We'll have an update. And also up next, let's get those phone calls rolling in this week. 205-348-9882. That's the number. There's the email address. We want to hear from you, Tider Insider Nation, and we'll be right back after this. Now, we're dealing with rain, and that looks like it's pretty out there in Reno, Nevada. But, Rodney, they had winds like 40 miles an hour yesterday. So they didn't get everybody out. They went ahead and sent Alabama and some other teams out late yesterday afternoon for some reason. I don't know why. Alabama played 7 holes and was 9 over because the wind was just incredible. So today they're trying to catch back up, but Alabama is 12th right now out of 16 teams playing in their second round. And right now struggling a little bit, but again, I don't understand why they even made them play. But hopefully they'll rally here and can advance on to NCAA Nationals, but it's going to take some work. All right, welcome back into TITV alongside Rodney Orr. I'm Gary Harris, and time to get to some phone calls. And what do we got on tap right now? We're going to take a phone call. We're going to take an email. All right. Listen, phone lines are open. So give us a call, 205-348-WVUA. Our email question of the day is brought to you by KDM Service Corporation. When it comes to heating and air conditioning, KDM Service Corporation serves your family like our family. All right, Rodney, here's the email question of the day. Any chance that Kevin DeBoer's daughter might be interested in transferring to Alabama? She is the Big Ten Freshman of the Year out at Washington. She is a dynamic softball player and certainly would be welcome here at Alabama. Alabama has a great freshman themselves who's a National Freshman of the Year contender, as is DeBoer. But I get the feeling, listen, that's kind of where she went to high school. She committed to Washington long before Coach DeBoer left to take the job at Alabama. Never say never, because you don't know how things are going to play out. But obviously she's happy there. It's where she wanted to go to school, and she's had a fantastic season.
I think it's kind of like you said. Alabama fans would sure love for her to be here, but I would be surprised.
Yeah, I mean, she seems like she's a pretty good fit out there. But I'm sure if she wanted to, Patrick Murphy would welcome her. Nicole DeBoer has had an incredible year for the Washington Huskies. All right, let's get to one more email question before we have to hit the break. Do y'all believe this Bama baseball team is good enough to make the College World Series? That's from Ronald in Northport. It's a great question, and my answer is yes. Now, does that mean they're going to reach the College World Series? No, it doesn't. Like I said, it's like the Final Four. Only 4 teams get to the Final Four, but there are a number of other teams that are good enough. I think Alabama is a World Series type squad, but it's a long shot, because even if they do host a regional, they're going to have to travel for supers. They may not even get to host a regional. But if you are asking me, do I think the collection of talent, if they get hot and, can play their best baseball in the postseason, Rodney, start maybe with the SEC tournament next week? Yes, I think they could get on a run and potentially make it.
Which brings up the point to me, Gary, in a couple of years, the job that Rob Vaughn has done. I mean, you've seen it firsthand, the way he's got this program, how he has elevated the program.
Yeah, so it's the fact that we're having this conversation. It's been 26 long years. I remember it well. I was in Tuscaloosa then, and I sent a guy who used to work for me out there, Dossie Rainey, to cover the Alabama Crimson Tide the last time they won the World Series with Jim Wells back in 1999. All right, we're going to get the timeout. Still to come on Tider Insider Television. Alabama rowing is searching for a new head coach, and we'll tell you why when we come back. And listen, phone lines are open. Where are our callers at, man? 205-348-9882. I don't care if it's one of our regulars or somebody new that has always said, I can't get through. Well, you can get through tonight. Give us a call, 205-348-WVUA 348-9882. We'll be right back. You stay with us. Alabama rowing coach Glenn Putre resigned following Alabama placing third at the first ever SEC rowing championships in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. He did a really good job at Alabama. He came in 2018 after his second stint at Gonzaga, which is a rowing powerhouse. Got Alabama into the Nationals one time and really kind of raised the profile of the program. He said this is what's best for his family. Greg Burns said Alabama will begin the national search for a new rowing coach immediately. And welcome back into TITV with Rodney Orr. I'm Gary Harris. Let's take a phone call. Our pal James over in Wadowee is going to be with us tonight. Hey, James, how are you?
I'm doing great, yeah. I just want to see about the kickers and the punters. How they doing?
Yes, sir. That's an area where Alabama's putting in some work, Rodney, kicking and punting. They got to replace a couple.
Yeah, they do. Burnup's going to be really tough. Blake Dowd, the young man that transferred in from the Colorado School of Mines, I think he's a guy that's got a lot of potential. He was a 2-time All-American in that division. They averaged like 46 yards a punt. Now, I know the atmosphere, the environment, and all that, a little bit different. And, the altitude kind of affects that some. But he did a nice job, Gary. I think in the spring there was some people talking about maybe, but I think he's a guy that can be really consistent. Now, as far as the place kicker, I'm thinking Connor Talty. He had a really good spring. This guy's highly recruited. He's waited his opportunity. It looked like he was going to be the guy last year, and then they brought in Graham Nicholson as a transfer. So Connor Talty right now out of Chicago, highly recruited players. You remember, Gary had a good spring. I think those are probably going to be your 2 kickers right now. Now, there is a chance that the freshman, Alex Esperoff, he injured his knee last year in high school, but he could perhaps be ready. So we'll see. And he was a very highly touted punter.
Yeah. All right, James, thanks for that question. Before we get to the email, I want to correct something. I knew it as soon as I said it, and I told Rodney during the break I got to correct that. Talking about Kaylen DeBoer's daughter, it's Alexis DeBoer. Her mom is Nicole, and I said Nicole DeBoer, but that's Alexis's mom, and of course her dad, Kaylen DeBoer. But she's a great softball player out there at the University of Washington. All right, let's get to an email question. Has Nate Oates hired Ryan Panone's replacement yet? That's from Lori and Hoover. The answer is no, and I'll be honest with you, Rodney, I haven't heard much about it as we look at Coach Panone, who went to Arkansas State to be the head coach there, taking over for another former Oates assistant, Brian Hodson, who went to South Florida. I think right now they're still focused on recruiting and the portal, and I don't get the sense that this is a hire that's going to be probably made until, once they put this roster together. At least that's the way it feels.
Which you mentioned the portal, Gary, and I know there's a lot of questions about that right now. Phylon could still come back. I mean, it's still an opportunity for that. And I know that there's word that Boogie Flan from Arkansas has gone out of the he's pulling out of the NBA draft, so could he be a potentially guy to watch?
Yeah. I think with Alabama, with Phylon, they'd love to have Phylon back. I think that would be the priority. But with Boogie Flan already announcing that he's going to play somewhere next year, you think Alabama will have interest there. They're 2 scholarships under the limit right now. So, yeah, they're looking to add a couple more players in this portal, that's for sure. But no replacement yet for Ryan Panone. All right, thanks for the phone call and the email. Still to come on TITV. Alabama Track and Field concluded the regular season and now have their sights set on the SEC championships. And we've got that, plus we'll put a wrap on it coming up next. So stay with us. Alabama Track and Field will travel to the University of Kentucky for the 2025 SEC Outdoor Track and Field Championships. The Alabama men are ranked 12th in the country. The Alabama women also have a solid squad, so Alabama has done really well at the SEC Outdoor Championships the last few years as the men's team took second last year. The women's team finished 9th last year. So the SEC championships begin on Thursday and run until the weekend. All right, that is going to wrap it up for this edition of Tider Insider TV, presented by Visit Tuscaloosa. Don't forget, if you missed any of tonight's show, you can catch a replay tonight at 10:30 following the news at 10 and online anytime at WVUA23.com. We're going to leave you with the last time Alabama played Florida State. It was in the 2017 Chick-fil-A kickoff game where the Tide won 24-7. They're going to play this year on August 30th, 2:30 kickoff on ABC. For Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Thanks for watching. Good night, everybody.